All right. What we're gonna talk about is the next upcoming fight. The big pay per view fight, the Mayweather versus Maidana. Already happened this past weekend, and while we leave that as history already, we're gonna move on to the next big fight, which is Sergio Martinez versus Miguel Cotto, or Miguel Cotto versus Sergio Martinez, however you want to call it. Of course, the A side would be Miguel Cotto. I believe he is the third pay per view star, the ranked number three pay per view star out of Mayweather and Pacquiao. So this fight, very very interesting. It's gonna be taking place at middleweight, 160 pounds. For those of you who don't know, that's two weight classes above Mayweather and Pacquiao, and one weight class above Canelo Alvarez. 160 pounds. The very dominant champion there is Gennady Golovkin. But this is a very interesting fight. Um, Miguel Cotto and Sergio Martinez. Let's break it down. Many people, of course, say that Martinez is gonna win the fight. Why? Because it's kind of like a logical, sense. Hey, Cotto lost. You know, two fights in a row, within the past years, and Sergio Martinez hasn't really lost. He hasn't lost at all, in my opinion, since he came from since that loss from Margarito way back. He had a draw. I think it was against what was this fighter's name? Well, I don't remember the fighter's name. He had a draw. I think it was Cintron. I'm not sure. And then he had a controversial loss against Paul Williams. But that draw and that loss, I don't think. I think it was because he was a foreigner guy and coming in from Argentina, and I don't know. So I think that they favored more the United States guys at the time. Anyways, Miguel Cotto versus Sergio Martinez. So, like I said, you say, you know what? Sergio Martinez hasn't lost. We haven't found out how the vulnerability of Sergio Martinez. We have found Miguel Cotto. Miguel Cotto has been beaten up, brutal. He has been knocked down. He has lost. He has those two losses back to back, Floyd Mayweather and Austin Trout. So you pretty much have the sense, as a logical guess in boxing, that Sergio Martinez, it's his weight class, has advantages, the footwork, the hand speed, But what about what about with those guys that think that Cotto's gonna win? Why do those guys think that Cotto's gonna win? Well, you have seen the marquee fights of Sergio Martinez, but have you seen his recent fight? He got knocked down a couple of times, and maybe people think because of the knockdowns, he did control majority of the rounds, but because of the knockdowns, the scorecards should have balanced it at least a draw. And people think he was given a gift decision. He pulled it out anyway. So that fight, and plus Sergio Martinez got knocked down versus against Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. But he really dominated, the whole fight. So here we go. Miguel Cotto, why would he win? I don't think you should. Styles make fights. Styles do make fights. If Cotto doesn't mean because he lost to two technical guys, means he's gonna lose again. I'm gonna give you an example. Let's say Guillermo Rigondeaux was a super middleweight, right? I'm sorry, super welterweight, light middleweight. And he fought Canelo. Of course, given the statistics and everything, Canelo's gonna lose. So Canelo loses to Guillermo. Then Canelo fights, let's say Mayweather. He loses. Then Canelo fights Trout. He loses. Then Canelo fights Lara. He loses. 4 losses in a row. Then Canelo decides to fight El Perro Angulo on his 5th fight. Let's say El Perro Angulo hasn't fought. I mean, not hasn't fought. He hasn't lost. Perro Angulo is undefeated. So logic says, you know what? Canelo has 4 losses. Perro Angulo hasn't lost. So you say, probably that, Angulo's going to beat the shit out of him. But the 4 losses come against technical fighters, which Angulo is nothing. Styles make fights. The style and what Angulo possesses, that style favors Canelo. So even though Canelo has 4 losses in a row, that doesn't mean, So it's the same thing as, Cotto. Just because he has 2 losses, Sergio Martinez hasn't had a loss. Like I said, styles make fights. Last couple of fights with Trout and Mayweather, Cotto was hunting. He was hunting his opponent. This fight, he's gonna be hunted. Different game plan. It's gonna suit him more to land on Sergio Martinez. I have no idea of how the plan is gonna play out. Because it's a new weight for Cotto, and it's I think Sergio Martinez. Paul Williams was a big name. And Kelly Pavlik was a big name. I give him credit for Julio Cesar Chavez, but Miguel Cotto is the biggest name. That he's gonna face. And like I said, you've already seen Cotto fatigue and tired, knocked down. It's not a surprise, to see him like that in another fight. So you said, and Sergio Martinez, if you haven't really paid attention to him, he did got knocked down a couple of times, like I mentioned. But before that, he was doing great. He was actually knocking down guys, young, strong, undefeated champions. It's it depends on. I think this fight, it just depends on who wants it more. By the way I see it, I mean, Cotto guards his hands, and then I think Sergio's just gonna like uppercut and hooks, and just step away. The footwork, and maybe Cotto might not be able to catch him. If Sergio Martinez goes to a defensive game plan, in the fight, it's gonna be a tough night for Cotto because Sergio has all the advantages. He's a champion of that weight class, the legitimate champion, and but like I said, styles make fights. Just because Cotto's lost and all this to these technical guys, it doesn't suit the same thing for Sergio Martinez. I don't see Cotto really landing or doing damage on Sergio. But when are we gonna learn? When are we gonna learn? Mayweather versus Maidana. Shit, we said easy walk for Mayweather. Well, what happened? Maidana stood his ground. Pacquiao versus Marquez, the 3rd fight. We said, Pacquiao's gonna beat the shit out of him. He's gonna knock him out. Marquez stood his ground. Even the Victor Ortiz versus Collazo, I said, tough opponent for Ortiz, but shit, Victor Ortiz is gonna beat the shit out of him. Shit, Collazo knocks him down in the 2nd round. Khan versus Garcia again. Who is Danny Garcia? Who's this guy for Khan? He knocks down Khan. Like I don't, we haven't learned that boxing is not something logical. It's not. Anything can happen. You know. The percentage of the logical, that I do agree. What percentage, and what do you bring to the table? Cotto brings the left hook, but you can't be just consistent of saying, you know what, I'm gonna have to land the left hook. You have to have different weapons under the arsenal, and I think Sergio Martinez has more weapons. It's gonna be a good fight, and yeah, like I said, styles make fights. I don't think it's a 50-50 fight. Maybe I'm leaning towards like a 65 um to 35 for Sergio Martinez. It's just his weight class. He's in he has that winning streak, and I think Cotto, just the footwork of Martinez. I think Cotto, with his guard, if Cotto would have been a boxer, that slides to the left or ducks, I think he's just gonna, that thing where he just stands still like that with both hands, and I think Martinez is just gonna rip uppercuts and then hooks on the sides, and Martinez can get away from Cotto because of the footwork. Um, Miguel Cotto's jab is strong. It's the timing is perfect, but I don't know if it's gonna work towards Martinez. It just all depends. Um, but like I said, styles make fights, and it's gonna be a good fight.